Ding Darling right here. Okay. All right, prior to the start of our Des Moines City Council meeting tonight, we are going to have a special presentation prior to our proclamation, and it's about Ding Darling. And so, Cindy, you're in charge. Tell us what's going on.
Well, would you like to read the proclamation? It's kind of self-explanatory.
Well, all right. I can go ahead and all right. Okay, proclamation ring. I got to tell you, my dad knew Ding Darling, and when I was a kid, I found what I think probably was one of my dad's more cherished possessions up in the attic. He had a big box that was about this big and this wide, and I opened it up, and they were all Ding Darling cartoons. And stuff that had been in the newspaper, and just, probably about 20 or 30 of them. And it was fabulous to look at them. I don't know where they are today. I wish we had them, but because it'd be great to be part of this day. But having said that, J. Norwood Ding Darling was born October 21st, 1876, and lived in Des Moines, Iowa for nearly 50 years. And whereas Ding Darling had a long and distinguished career at the Des Moines Register as an editorial cartoonist and was syndicated in over 130 newspapers nationwide. And whereas Ding Darling was awarded Pulitzer Prizes for editorial cartooning in 1924 and 42. And whereas Ding Darling championed issues in his editorial cartoons that commended on pollution, politics, conservation, government spending, war, wise use of our natural resources, and the plight of every man. We kind of wish he was here to be working on some of these issues today. And whereas Ding Darling's leadership led to the formation of the National Wildlife Federation, the Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit Program, and the Wildlife Management Institute, and whereas Ding Darling led the predecessor of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service under President Franklin Roosevelt, and was also an establisher of the Iowa Department of Natural Resources and the Isaac Walton League of Iowa. And whereas Ding Darling designed the first federal duck stamp and founded the program that licenses waterfowl hunters and funds conservation of waterfowl habitat throughout the United States, that has raised over $2 billion in inflation-adjusted dollars to preserve critical habitat for the national refuge wildlife system. And whereas Ding Darling brought together a collaboration of citizens and federal agencies to create the Sanibel National Wildlife Refuge in Florida. And whereas Ding Darling anonymously donated the land for Prospect Park in Des Moines. And whereas the documentary film entitled America's Darling, the story of J.N. Ding Darling, will debut in Des Moines on October 23rd, 2012. Today, Ding Darling's legacy continues to inspire others by being relevant to current conservation issues. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of Des Moines, on behalf of our City Council and all the citizens of Des Moines, do hereby proclaim October 21st, 2012 as Ding Darling Day. And now, I'm going to turn it over to you guys to talk about it.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the council so much for proclaiming this day. Ding Darling, his cartoons appeared above the centerfold on the front page of the Des Moines Register for decades. And the issues that he talked about are still so relevant today. It's almost strange how appropriate they are for the problems of today. He also loved living in Des Moines. He could have really lived anywhere since his cartoons were in 130 newspapers. But he chose Des Moines, and he wrote a piece in 1919 entitled Why I Wouldn't Trade Des Moines for New York. And it is also still very relevant. And because we know the council members also love Des Moines, we thought that they would enjoy having a copy of this article. So thank you very much. I'd also like to introduce Jane Hunt, who's president of the Friends of Des Moines Parks Foundation, and Kimberly Hampson, who's also a board member, and Ben Page, who's the interim director of the Parks Department. And we have really been behind this film and hope you'll all come on October 25th.
Definitely.
The
I've shown it.
Temple for Performing Arts on October 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Listen. Thank you all, and we'll start our council meeting in just a moment. Wait a minute, we want a picture? All right, everybody back up here. Cindy. Okay, I think we should get the microphone out of the way. Okay, thank you.
Are you involved in the Grace Lake? Are they here?
We have a lot of things going on in and around Des Moines, and over on the south side, we've got a couple of special projects going on, certainly Grace Lake Trail and our Quiet Streets program. And our council member for 3rd Ward is Christine Hensley. And Chris, why don't you talk about it just a minute?
Thank you very much, Mayor. A couple of years ago, we had neighborhood leaders from the south side that approached the city staff and asked about the possibility of a trail to from Grace Lake that would also connect into Lake Park Zoo. And we began having meetings at several of the businesses over on Bell Avenue, and they really became engaged. We figured out what would be an appropriate location for the trail, worked with the property owners over there, and as a result, we now have a trail under construction as well as all of the funding in place. And one important component of that funding is that we wanted to have private support for the trail. And so I'd like to ask Evan Shaw, who is the president of the Grace Lake Neighborhood Association, Julie and Woody, and we've got some other individuals that are here as well, if they could come on up to the front here. They want to actually officially present the funds that were raised on behalf of the trail to the city of Des Moines tonight. And they had a great couple of events to raise this money and really did some heavy lifting to raise the funds that they have. The total price tag for the trail is $417,000, and I'm going to let Evan make the official announcement as to what the group, the Neighborhood Association, actually raised to go towards this trail. Evan?
Councilwoman Hensley, Mayor County, it is the pleasure of the Grace Lake Neighborhood Association to present to the City of Des Moines a check in the amount of $41,000 composed entirely of private donations for the South Side Trail Connector and the Quiet Street. Thank you very much.
Let's give them a big hand. You know, I'd like to add that this is one of the reasons why Des Moines keeps getting acclaimed as such a great place to live and a great place to raise a family and have a home. And because of the way that citizens, neighborhoods, and business, and our public sector, whether it be the city of Des Moines or Polk County, we all work together very closely to try to make Central Iowa a great place to live and to raise a family and have a business, and quite frankly, for our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to have a future. And we hope that it's as bright and prosperous as we've enjoyed in our lifetimes, and because of some of the work that you guys are doing helps us have a good thought that maybe this is going to continue in the future. So thank you very, very much. Let's get a picture of these guys up here. And Chris, you want to stand there with a check right there in the middle?
Okay. We got the check here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Diane, do you have any yet? Already? Oh my gosh. I guess. I do need to, I would like to go on to number 7 as well.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 13th meeting of the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board. We're going to do that before our City Council meeting. This body sits also as that governing body. At this time, I'd like the clerk to take roll, please.
County.
Here.
Coleman. Here. Moore. Here. Reese. Here. Mahaffey. Here. Hensley.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Right, item 2 is approving the submittal of the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency's 2012 Section 8 Management Assessment Program SEMAP certification to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development HUD. Board Communication Number 12-406. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this, or Doug, would you like to summarize it real quickly?
Good evening, Mayor, County members of the City Council. Doug Romig, Housing Services Director. The CMAP, or the Section 8 Management Assessment Program, is our scoring criteria on how we manage our Section 8 program files. We pull and review certifications regarding rent calculations, eligibility incomes, pulling from our waiting list appropriately. And in our self-review of that and the submittal that will be going to HUD, we should receive the high performer status, which would be the 10th year in a row for that under our Section 8 program management.
Any questions anybody has? Doug, thank you. Anybody in the audience have any questions? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move.
Item 2 has been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Item 3 is authorizing the Des Moines Municipal Housing Agency Director to execute Housing Choice Voucher Home Ownership Program Subsidy Agreements. Board Communication Number 12-407. Anybody in the audience to speak on this item? Anything in particular on this, Doug?
And Mayor, County, members of the council, Doug Romig, Housing Services Director. This is actually a new initiative. We have a new program within our Section 8 program where our Section 8 participants that are in our Family Self-Sufficiency Program can use their Section 8 voucher housing assistance payment to go towards principal and interest payment towards home ownership. It's a 15-year term, and what's before the council this evening is our first applicant client that will participate in this, and it's the financing agreement with U.S. Bank, which allows us to send our HAP payment, our housing assistance payment, directly to the bank and not to the individual. So we're asking for approval of this agreement and then authorization for me as the director to sign subsequent agreements of a similar nature with other financing institutions that would participate in this program.
Any questions? Seeing none, could we have a motion? Moved. It's been moved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Could we have a motion to adjourn the Municipal Housing Agency Governing Board?
Move.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We said adjourned. Prior to starting our official meeting of the Des Moines City Council again for August 13th, we're going to have a quick message from our own City Council member, Hallie Grease, and we'd ask that anybody that would participate that they would stand at this time.
Please join me in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you afresh tonight. God, we just thank you that you're good, gracious, and loving toward us. God, we thank you that you care about each of us personally and that you desire a relationship with each one of us, God. We just pray that you would give us grace in our decision-making tonight. We pray that you would help us be humble and respectful of others and their ideas. God, we just invite you to join us in our meeting tonight, and please bless our discussions. In your name we pray, amen.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to take roll, please.
County.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Moore. Here. Reese. Mahaffey.
Here.
Hensley.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, our second item is approving the agenda as presented and or as amended.
I'll move item 2, but I'd like to pull 7 to be discussed as well.
All right,
I would like to pull 4 as well.
do you want to do that as we go through the consent agenda?
Oh,
And
I'm
we'll do
sorry.
that?
Thank you.
Okay. So, motion is to approve the agenda as presented and or as amended.
Seven yes.
All right, item 3 is approving the consent agenda tonight. Those are items 3 through 46. For those of you keeping track of this, item 4A has been withdrawn. The inspections are incomplete. And on the regular agenda items, 47 to 66, 51 has been withdrawn at request, and 63 is a corrected, I think the address is 4560 Hubble, and there are 2 extra items. Again, items 3 through 46. Item 7, I believe, Mrs. Hensley, you want to pull?
Yes, please.
And Ms. Coleman, do you want to pull 4A?
I would.
All right. 4A, which has been withdrawn, Ms. Coleman will speak to it. Item 33, Council members Hensley and Meyer wish to speak, and item 34, Councilmember Meyer wishes to speak. Are there any other items that anybody in the audience has that they would like to pull for clarification or further discussion? The balance of the items not pulled will be voted on as one single item without someone pulling any of them. Anybody have any other items? Seeing none, can we have a motion for the balance? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes. Takes us to item 4A. Item 4A is approving an alcoholic beverage license application for the following, and that's a Robbie at 2710 Ingersoll Avenue for a B beer license. Mr. Coleman.
My purpose in asking to speak about this is to refer a matter to the city clerk and city attorney and city manager's team. It's my understanding one of the applicants also operates at this location something that's called a hookah bar. I'm not necessarily exactly sure what happens inside a hookah bar, but I am interested in what kind of restrictions that we might have or that the law imposes on a place like that, and whether or not we want liquor license to be awarded to a use in that realm. As a father of some teenagers, I'm not quite sure what legal restrictions there are to begin with and how that complicates a liquor license. So if people could educate us a little bit, and if it was the feeling of our leaders on the city staff that we should pursue some kind of regulation, ordinance, zoning, liquor license restrictions, I'd appreciate your thoughts on that.
All right, we have a motion.
I don't think I have to move it because it was pulled. How do I do that? Move to receive and file my comments
Okay.
and refer to the three of you.
7 yes.
All right, takes us to item 7. Item 7 is approving a professional services agreement with Brian Clark and Associates, Inc., doing business as Confluence. Brian Clark, President, for the Walnut Street streetscape renovation, not to exceed $199,790. Council Communication number 12-417. Mrs. Hensley.
I'm going to look over to the city manager because I asked questions regarding this issue, and I thought it was just important that we have a public discussion regarding the awarding of this bid.
Thank you, Mrs. Hensley, council members. We have a city employee, Erin Olson Douglas, who has declared a conflict of interest on this. I mention it because her husband is part of the consulting team that is recommended for your approval this evening. In this particular instance, Erin discussed the matter with her supervisor, Phil Delafield, and prior to the beginning of the process to review the various applications that came in response to our RFP, Ms. Olson declared her conflict, and she recused herself from all of the internal staff review and decision-making associated with this particular recommendation. I mention it to you because these kinds of issues can be sensitive in the broader community, and I want both the council and the public to know that we took the appropriate steps to ensure that this conflict of interest was not an issue and did not influence the staff's recommendation that's before you this evening.
Mr. Manager, I appreciate that information. I think it would be helpful from my perspective, and I'll let the rest of the council speak, but that we include that type of information in blue letters so it would be available to the public. Because that was why I raised the question, was I thought I knew there was a connection. Not that I had a problem, but I just wanted to make sure that there was a clear public discussion as to how we dealt with that.
That's an excellent suggestion, and we will henceforth make sure that when there are those kinds of conflicts, we will identify it in the communications to council and to the public.
Okay, thank you. I'll move item 7 then.
Seven yes.
Takes us to item 33. Item 33 is a memorandum of understanding and MOU with Polk County for sharing resources, facilities, and infrastructure. Council Communication number 12-413. Council members Hensley and Meyer have asked this to be pulled. Council members, who would like to speak first?
Go ahead.
Ryan?
The reason I pulled it is because it's my belief that the chief and the former chief would like to address the issue. So,
And I would just add, from my perspective, when I was reading through the council agenda and saw the item on there, I was pleasantly surprised to see that these discussions were going on. Budgets are tight in all areas, and I think anytime we can work together and decrease expenses, that's positive.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the council, Judy Bradshaw, Chief of Police. The sheriff, and I'll let him speak for himself, but he and I would like to ask you all for your support in forming this memorandum of understanding, I got a phone call earlier from Mrs. Hensley who said, okay, what does this allow you all to do? We currently share a records management system. We currently work together in trying to forge a relationship in purchasing equipment and technology. We currently share resources with the Homeland Security Metro Star team. And so this relationship, really, this MOU takes it to the next level. And it allows us to look at our radio systems, which the city of Des Moines, our police department, is going to need a new radio system in the near future. These radio systems, if you cost them out, are extremely expensive. If you look at just purchasing one for the city of Des Moines, we're looking at anywhere from about $22 to $25 million. Polk County currently is looking at their radio systems, and again, I'll let the sheriff speak for himself. But we think this makes sense, and this is just good government, where you can look to reduce taxpayer dollars, whether it's sharing infrastructure, whether it is sharing a radio system down the road, you know, potentially combining some services that are redundant now. That's what the sheriff and I are hoping to do. This just sort of sends the message to the community that this is the direction that we're going to go. And I think that there's going to be a benefit here. I think that it's going to allow the sheriff and I to sit down, and when we look at our budgets, that we're going to be able to bring our staff together and talk about, okay, how do we afford these kinds of things that we have to provide to the citizens of Des Moines and also to the citizens in the county. So that's why we're here tonight. We would ask for your support, and hopefully down the road we're going to be coming before you and you know, telling you about technology that we're going to be sharing together. Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Bill McCarthy, Polk County Sheriff. I can't really add more to what Chief Bradshaw said, except to say that that there is an opportunity here that I hope will manifest itself more clearly within the next 3 to 5 years. And we're not talking at this point about combining dispatch centers. I want to take that off the table so we don't alarm those people concerned about that. You can buy a trunking system, a system that lets you operate in both locations separately, but you share all the technology and all the infrastructure. And to do that would be a multi-million-dollar savings. Secondly, this area, from the federal government's perspective, will not support 3 PSAP or dispatch centers. And currently there's one in Polk County, there's one on the west side, and there's the Des Moines Police Department. So long term, something's going to happen anyway. And this is the right thing. We're just simply asking, and I underline what the chief said. She said it well. We're just looking for ways to cooperate as we move through not only the communication side, but the phone systems that we have to use, the E911 money, which is ever changing, and then the situation with the state as they build out their system once they decide what direction they want to go. So I just want to add one other comment. Having been away from the city of Des Moines now for 5.5 years, I got to tell you that I've run across a lot of good public employees at the city and county level for some of the other municipalities as well, but there are none better than what I experienced here in Des Moines, from the city manager all the way through. So I miss the city of Des Moines. I'm really happy where I'm at. I hope to stay there, but I thank you all for giving me an opportunity to speak, and I'm totally supportive of Chief Bradshaw and her direction on this and her leadership. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sheriff and Chief, maybe one or both of you could answer. I just have sort of a clarification. I understand the point that probably we don't need triple redundancy in broadcast and dispatch. Could you give us sort of an idea what the capacity has been in the usage of Polk County system, and then also maybe the city of Des Moines as compared to that third system? I mean, what are we looking at in terms of number of calls and number of whatever, where does the usage lie?
Des Moines is the busiest. And I don't know what the calls are at this point, but I know at one point they exceeded 200,000 a year. Polk County dispatches for 15 fire departments, some of which are volunteer,
Yep.
and 15 law enforcement agencies. And Westcom does for West Des Moines, Urbandale, and Clive. So Polk County is a close second, not because of the Polk County Sheriff's Office, but because of the consortium we dispatch for, and followed up by Westcom. The technology is to be interoperable. We have to go to a P25 system is what they call. That's kind of the state of the art. Neither one of us are at that point. Westcom is, and if we're going to have to migrate to that direction, it makes sense that we try to do it together. Now, it'd be up to the council and the board to decide the degree of that togetherness, but the infrastructure surely could be operated by both in 2 different locations.
Right, I appreciate your comment. Anybody else?
One question, Bill. As you mentioned, there's 3 systems. Have we talked to the western suburbs about coordinating with them?
We in Polk County, with the support of a couple of my board members, spent 2 years talking to them about that issue. We parted company at a point because they want to own and control their system. We at the county, on the other hand, long before I got there, decided they were going to rent the system. The trend in public safety communications, not only for us in the military, is to rent the system from a private concern. Therefore, you don't have to have a radio shop, you don't have to have back stock, and you don't have to have employees that are technically skilled to do all the things you otherwise have to have when you're on your own system. And so they had a certain a belief that to own is to control, and we feel good about the rented system, and we think our decision compares favorably for us.
Let me answer for Des Moines if I could. Des Moines, the city of Des Moines owns its radio system. It is different, as the sheriff said, from Westcom and from what the Polk County is operating. It is a very robust system. The problem is it is going to become obsolete. We're being told probably about the year of 2022 or so. And that really depends on federal regulations and some of the restrictions that they're going to be placing on state and local government and their radio systems. So we did receive a grant years ago, the interoperability grant, that allows all the jurisdictions within the metro area and even north of Des Moines to begin to communicate with each other. That's being managed by our department, by the city. And we're working with the sheriff's office, and we're purchasing some equipment for some of the fire departments and for the sheriff's deputies. But that is still not going to replace the need to look at a complete radio system for both, the county and the city. We had talked with Westcom when they were looking at their options, because they simply had areas of their communities between West Des Moines and Clive that were not covered by their radio system. So they were pushed to do something earlier. Des Moines was not in that position, nor was the county. And the county leases its equipment. There's advantages to that, as the sheriff articulated, but we own ours, and it's very robust. We have 2 radio shop employees that also service public works and other departments, and the fire department. So we're very content with our system. We just know it's going to be obsolete one day as technology, advances. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
First off, thanks for putting this together, and we appreciate it. I know you, for decades, have been part of conversations about this, so I'm glad that that it's happening. Chief, thank you very much. The one thing that I've learned as we've tried to work with other jurisdictions and across other government layers of government, it's worked out best when we've kind of set some goals so there's a target. So if I had any encouragement or advice, it would be, can you even if nobody else knows? Do you have some goals that you could set up and something that we could measure this, say 24 months from now or something like that? I know some of the radio things could be even longer out than that, but I would sure like to think that there's something that we could measure and set our sights on, and that the council and the manager, all of us could assist you in reaching those goals that are realistic.
I'll answer part of that, and then I'll ask the sheriff too as well. Currently, Polk County is in the process, or already has purchased a new phone system. Now, with communications and radio systems, they go hand in hand with that phone call and the technology with, E911 and wireless versus digital. I mean, all that comes together and also has a role with your radio system. So we would like to, the first goal is to come on board with Polk County with the phone systems and have the same kind of advantages as their new phone system. We'd like to have the same kind of phone system in Des Moines. I think realistically for us to look at a timeline within the next 12 months of where we want to go, looking out 5 years, 10 years, and we really have to work our way back to when we think that we're going to become obsolete, and then how do we work back from there. I think that's realistic. It's the county, the state, the city cannot afford 5 years out or even 10 years out. But I think if we first select that we are looking at a joint radio system and we timeline that out, and then we look at funding and what makes sense, there's going to be grant dollars that are going to be available down the road, that we're not even aware of yet. And is that what you're looking for, Councilman?
I think that's part of it. I'd like to think that ultimately the citizens can see a benefit from it too. That between the two departments, we think in the next 5 years we can save $2 million out of each of the departments, or something that the citizens can also kind of trace that back and say they set out to do something, they did, and there really was benefit to the taxpayer without creating any safety issues for our residents. I'm not asking you to set goals here in front of everybody, but I think it's worth the discussion for you.
I think that's absolutely correct. I think a lot of that will depend upon the political will of the policymakers, quite frankly. And I think collectively, if there is that will, and I think there is, because we've gotten positive feedback from the board, and I know the commitment you all have made and articulated, but it'll be beyond me and Judy or the chief and the sheriff.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
I'll move. Okay, go ahead. Move 33. Did you guys want to address 34?
Okay, item 34 is a memorandum of understanding MOU with Polk County for a service level agreement, Council Communication number 12-412. Apparently not.
I'll move 34.
I think they felt they addressed it earlier.
Mr.
7 yes.
All right, that completes the consent agenda, and given the time at 5:02, we'll move straight to our hearings. First item in the hearings tonight, there are items 54 through 62. Number 54 is on the appeal of Robert and Debbie Dyer of 1422 Wilson Avenue of the administrative hearing officer's decision regarding their dogs, Exhibits A to C and Exhibits D to F. Yes, please.
Mayor, council members, my name is Robert Dyer, live at 1422 Wilson Avenue, and I'm here regarding my dogs. I guess we had a hearing a few weeks back regarding my dogs being at large, and there was 4 items. They said that my dog bit a child. They said that my dog had jumped the fence and bit the neighbor to the far east of myself. I guess I'm here to just say that the dogs didn't bite a 4-year-old child. I have 2 German Shepherd dogs just over 2 years old, very playful dogs. I think the only thing I'm guilty of them being at large, they got at the house, but they didn't mean any malice towards anyone in the neighborhood. I did bring here with me tonight a trainer who's actually observed my dogs in their natural state, and maybe he could speak on the aggressiveness, or they said they're what was the word? They're very violent dogs, and they're not. They're vicious. That was the verbiage. The dogs are vicious. So, Mike, Youthy, or
am I allowed to speak? Or?
This is some new information, and I guess what we need to address is why the information was not presented at the hearing.
What information was that, sir?
That the trainer may present. Is this new information that he's going to present, or that you would like him to present?
Well, at the time of the hearing that we went to, we didn't know we could bring anyone. So therefore, I guess this is unfamiliar territory for us. So we just basically want to just take the verbiage of our dogs are vicious off. Or we don't want that label on our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm at a loss for words when you ask me why didn't we present this information early on.
Okay.
Do you want me to give an explanation?
Yeah, I'd like to have our city attorney to quickly explain the relevance of the question.
The reason the question's important, sir, is because the code provides that you have to bring whatever information that you want into the record to the hearing officer. It doesn't do the council any good to have the hearing officer process and have a hearing officer review all this information, and then you bring supplemental information later. The only thing that you're allowed to make whatever argument you want to make based on the information that's already in the record, but you're not allowed to bring forth new evidence that would have been available at the time that you had the original hearing. And I don't believe the fact that you weren't aware that you could produce that evidence means that that wasn't available. It simply was not brought forward. So you're free to make whatever argument you want to make based on what's in the record before the council, but you cannot bring and produce new evidence that you didn't provide to the hearing officer.
Okay, so when we went before a young lady a couple weeks ago, that's when we should have presented a dog trainer then? Is that
you should have brought whatever evidence that you had. That I mean, you were given notice at that point in time per code. This is in the city code. You need to bring your evidence to that hearing officer so that she can make the decision that she makes, because she's made a decision based on the information that was before her at the time. And the rules of the council don't permit the council to consider brand new evidence unless it was evidence that simply wasn't available. And this sounds like it would have been available. You just weren't aware that it should have been produced at that time.
Okay, so with that, I guess we can...
I'm Deb Dyer. I guess what I want to dispute is they had talked about, when I looked at the law, the dogs biting. The dogs never bit the neighbor's dog. What it does is the dog comes out, immediately charges the fence, barks up and down. Well, to me, that's provocation for my dogs. That's provoking my dogs. So they had jumped the fence, and they put him in a submissive hold. They just, right there, which they do that to each other. That's where they, big brother, little brother, they're two brothers. And that's where they show dominance towards each other. is, you know, they'll pull at the neck or whatever. But there were no bite marks. They took them to the vet once, and the vet's like, there's no bite marks. There was no bleeding. There was nothing. So I'm here to defend that therefore there was no bite. The dogs did not bite. The incident with the little girl is the ARL officer looked at the girl. We were not home at the time. My son was the one that took the dogs out. They could not find any bite marks at all. They looked wherever she said that they nipped her. There were no bite marks, but then 2 weeks later, there's these so-called bruises and bite marks. I mean, I guess I just don't understand. That's what we've been disputing the entire time. So, I mean, to me, it's not clear cut, in my opinion. So, and it is our fault, I guess, that we didn't bring the trainer with us at that point. So, I just wanted to, that's what we're disputing is the facts. They didn't bite, and how are there bite marks when the ARL officer who is trained to find them didn't find them, but yet 2 weeks later, they find them.
So where did the pictures come that are the exhibits? Who provided those pictures?
Depends on which pictures you're looking at. We've never seen the supposedly bite marks.
Or the bite marks.
We've never seen them.
A doctor's bill, or we've never seen a vet bill.
But they've stated that when they've taken them to the vet's like, they didn't bite your dog. There's no bite marks. They didn't bite. So I guess that's where I'm disputing. There's no bite marks, so how can they claim that they bit the neighbor's dog?
Well, when the officer comes up, if he could answer that question, because we've got quite a few pictures here with bruising or some type of mark.
We've never seen them.
Okay, but the question is, if the ARL came that day, if that individual who's supposed to be in his professional capacity did not see any bruising or biting, and then 2 weeks later we get a letter saying you need to go before the council because there's bite marks. I don't understand the latency of the bite marks. I don't understand if they weren't there the day of, why are they there 2 weeks later? I don't understand that.
Let's let the officer go over the exhibits and talk about the timing and presentation, the taking the photos, and
Sergeant Rodabow with the Police Department. I'd like to just kind of summarize the events as they came to be known to me. On May 20th, 2012, Mr. Dyer's dogs jumped the fence and as they spoke, went after the neighbor's dog, bit it. There was no broken skin injury, but there was dog at large and so forth. On May 11th, Mr. Dyer's dogs once again were running at large, entered onto the neighbor's property and prevented someone from exiting their vehicle by circling the vehicle, barking and growling. On April 27th, 2012, Mr. Dyer's dogs were running at large when they bit the arm of a 4-year-old neighbor girl. When the animal control officer went that evening, it was presented to him that it bit, but didn't break the skin. The criteria for making a dog bite report is broken skin, because that's how rabies is transmitted. I think it was a bit of a busy night for the animal control officer, and so he gave, I think he gave a warning. When I found out that no paperwork was generated, I wasn't real pleased, and I sent the animal control officer back out to further investigate, and if nothing else, make yet another dog at large report. He did go back out, he did reinvestigate, and the parents showed the injuries that they later presented photographs at the hearing of those injuries. That's where the photographs came from, where the parents submitted those at the hearing. Okay. On January 27th, 2011, Mr. Dyer's dogs jumped the fence, went onto a neighbor's property, and were aggressively trying to get into the neighbor's garage where the neighbor hid from the dogs. You know, we don't have a series of 5 kids getting bit here, but we do have 1 child getting bit, and we have dogs jumping the fence to go after the neighbor's dog. I don't enjoy declaring dogs vicious, but we've just got this repetitive behavior that I don't think if someone doesn't intervene, we may see it progress, and that's why the dogs were declared vicious. They can certainly keep their dogs, but they'll have to confine them properly, which means securely in the house, securely in a special kennel, or on a leash held by an adult. Kind of the common theme that came up in the hearing, won't go through all of that, but was the dogs got through the fence, jumped the fence, or the Dyers weren't home when their kids were home and the dogs were running at large. Once again, they can keep their dogs, but got to keep them corralled better. And then if the dogs do progress to a more serious bite, they'll have insurance to cover injuries and medical bills, rather.
Council have any questions or thoughts? All right.
Are we going to have a chance to discuss in a minute?
Sure.
Do you want to close what's your goal right now? Just to close this?
I think we would ask if they have any other comments.
Can you please just go through exactly what the definition of a vicious dog is and what, quote unquote, the penalties are? I mean, they get to keep their dog if it's confined, and then there's an insurance requirement.
I didn't bring a copy of 18-41 that goes through all of the exact points, if you will. But basically, a vicious dog, like I said, they can keep the dog, but they have to license it as a vicious dog, which requires proof of current rabies vaccination, which everybody is required to have. Also proof of liability insurance. That protects that if there's another bite and there's liability claims, that they have insurance.
And the liability amount is, because they actually have a document in here from their insurance company.
Yes. When the dogs were declared vicious, they were not under impound, and so to not have them impounded, they have to provide proof of the liability insurance, and they did. So they already have that, is my understanding. And then in the special confinement, excuse me, the special confinement, like I said, they have to keep them either in their house secure or in a special kennel secure or on a leash held by an adult. The goal here is just to keep them from running at large and yet having another problem.
Is there ever a time that we have declared an animal vicious and then taken that designation away from them in the future?
No, the ordinance doesn't have a clause in there for that. No, we don't have a clause in there. I've certainly had folks through the years, one in particular jumps out at me that claimed that it hadn't bit. As it turns out, the dog had been living on a farm outside the city for some time and then came back in the city and bit again. So there is not a provision, the short answer to that.
But based upon the information we have, if we move forward and declare the dog vicious, really what we're saying is because they have all of the other, they've got the rabies vaccination, they've got the appropriate liability insurance. The real issue is them keeping it under control in their house or within the fenced-in yard.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's really the issue?
Yes.
Okay.
I have something else to say.
Hold on one second. Any other questions of Sergeant Radebaugh? Okay, thank you. Yes.
Sergeant Radebaugh had talked about one of the clauses that they had brought up was the jumping the fence of January 2011. The dogs were roughly a year old at that point. That neighbor had already come to us when he saw we had German Shepherds and said, I am deathly afraid. I got bit by a German Shepherd when I was a puppy, and I said, I completely understand. I said, they're puppies. They do look vicious. But I said, we're not training them to be vicious dogs. We've taken them to socialization classes, walk them around the neighborhood. And we went to trial on that because that was the first time the dogs had jumped the fence. We went to trial. We pled not guilty, so we had to have a trial. The judge had declared and ruled in our favor that we had done what we needed to do, socialization, but they're puppies. They will jump. They're curious. All they did was jump the fence. He was scared, so therefore he didn't move. I understand that. But they did not at any point attack him, drive him into his garage, nothing. He just stood there. And actually, my son said one of our dogs, who's Thor, went between his legs, which is how he shows affection. That's where he, goes up and goes in between your legs. That's where he shows affection. He didn't bite. He wasn't growling at that point. He was wagging his tail, but our neighbor is deathly scared, and I completely understand. But there was at no point did they attack him, try to bite him. He was just scared. And the judge said, I completely agree. They're puppies. They're curious. They will jump. And she had told us, if you put in a privacy fence, I will actually give you back the court costs. And we have since put in a 6-foot privacy fence in our backyard.
And
so
when
we
did that go in?
That went in
just in March.
3 months ago.
But the dogs had still gotten out after the fact.
Well, what happened was, we're working on our deck as well. So they got under our deck and then they went over the small section of the fence that wasn't completed.
So have they gotten out since you got the privacy fence completely done?
No, not from the fence area, but they got out through our front door.
Okay.
But since the fence has been up, the 6-foot fence has been up, the gates are up, they have not gotten out.
And like we say, we see neighbors, we see dogs running at large all the time. We don't call. That's just what, neighbors don't call on each other unless there's something. One of them was testifying that their lease landlord said, I'm going to warn you, if your dogs get out, they'll kill your dogs. He has never met my dogs, only seen them from afar. And of course, they're German Shepherds. They look mean. And so, that's a vicious statement. And that's a false statement.
Any other questions?
There were affidavits from our neighbors.
Number of neighbors, yeah.
Tons of them. And I had just that, I think we went on a Monday. That Friday, I had a group of friends over. They had never been to my house since I've had the dogs. The dogs were out. And and one of them was pretty scared of the dogs. I'm like, just sit there. They'll come up to you, take the ball, and throw it in the backyard. By the end of the night, they were buddies. Just all the dogs want to do is just have you throw the ball at them, and we'll be out all night in the backyard, just sitting on our deck and throwing the ball. So there's some affidavits from them. They had never met our dogs before. So.
I just want to add, the German Shepherds, they're working dogs. These dogs mean no malice to anyone. They don't know to be mean. I can see if we train them to be mean, but they're just curious dogs. Just like any other dog, whether it's a Chihuahua or whatever. Our dogs are mainly in-house dogs. The only time we take them out on the deck is when we're all outside as a family. They're not malice dogs whatsoever. They've never bitten anyone. I have the neighbor to the immediate west of me. He told me, Robbie, I'm terrified of your dogs. Your dogs don't like me. My dogs don't know you not to like you. Dogs they're not designed that way. The dogs or the neighbors to the immediate east of me and the neighbors to the immediate east of them, they talk. They just create these inflammatory statements towards one another. And unfortunately, this is where I'm at with my dogs. Did they get out? Yes, they got out. Sorry, they got out.
Can I just clarify? So you admit that in January of 2011 they got out?
Yes.
You admit that on April 27th of 12 they got out? Mm-hmm. May 11th, 12 they got out?
Mm-hmm. From the house.
May 20. Well, it doesn't matter. They're out, yes. Right? And May 20th of 12 they got out again.
Yeah. Does that make them vicious?
Well, some of the behavior when they're throwing the neighbor's dog down in the neighbor's yard, one would think that to be, even though it's just play, a neighbor might think that holding your dog down, the neighbor's dog, by the throat someone might consider coming over on your property and having that happen to be vicious. Had it happen on your property, it might be a different interpretation, but I think that you've resolved the issue. You've taken care of everything you need to keep the dogs on your property, which I think is what everybody was hoping. And so I commend you both for taking care of all that. I just don't know that, with 4 incidents that, how we can change, the outcome. But let's see what the council has to say, and I appreciate you guys coming down, and I also appreciate your work at taking care of your dogs. Appreciate it a lot, and I think the training will go a long ways to keeping them in your yard and under your voice control and hopefully on a leash. All right.
Quickly, if I could just make a comment. I know Mr. Dyer as Robbie. We went to high school together, and I believe his dogs are probably a reflection of his gentle spirit as well. But, nonetheless, I think we got the semantics issue. We're responsible for enforcing our ordinance. We have the power to destroy dogs when we think that they've gone over the line. And I think all of us have appreciated this kind of interim definition to try and draw people's attention, to the rules that we have. The rules that we're asking dog owners of a vicious dog to follow shouldn't be any different than the owners that we're asking of any dog, keeping them locked up, being responsible, having insurance available if they do something, seems to me the way everybody should behave. And I know it has to really turn your stomach that it's labeled a certain way. But beyond the label, I think you're meeting everything else. And I mentioned this a minute ago. I do wonder if there's not extenuating circumstances sometime over a long period of time. The council couldn't, take that designation off. Those are dogs that are going to live, a decade and a half. Maybe at some point the council could have a conversation about that, because I do know Robbie's a man of his word, and he wouldn't be telling us stories here. And sometimes you have to believe. We have people that stand up here, and it's really hard for us to believe they're being truthful. I think you guys are, and I appreciate that. Nonetheless, we do have rules written that are pretty specific, and I think in this case, we'd have probably a hard time not saying that this meets the definition. Whether someday we create a way to come back and look at it again, maybe we can.
All right, we need a motion.
I guess I would echo Councilman Coleman's sentiment. I think if we were talking about putting this dog down, I think we're having a different discussion tonight. But we're talking about a label, as you alluded to. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. People's lives are more valuable than a label that goes with a dog and the requirements that come with a vicious dog. So I don't know if Chris made a motion, but I would be happy to make a motion to uphold the administrative hearing officer's decision based on that. I do think we have to be consistent as we apply these. I do think this is a tough situation, and I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate you speaking, and I understand where you're at. But I do think this meets our definition of vicious, and I think the extra precautions that are required because of that are fitting and appropriate in this situation. So that'll be my motion.
I'll support that motion. I just would ask that we also add or look at staff to give us some direction on, is there a way that when we move forward with declaring a dog vicious, that if they go a year or 2 years without having another incident, that they be given the ability to come back and request that be removed? And I say that because I'm guessing that probably what happens is their insurance premiums are going to go up as a result of having an animal that's been declared vicious. I know that they've got appropriate insurance right now, but my guess is that it probably does have a significant financial impact as well. And I'd like to, if they, have done everything that they've said that they've done, the socialization and all of the other, taken all the different steps that they can to ensure that everything is being done appropriately, I'd like to at least give them the opportunity to come back and request before us that that be revisited. So if legal could work with us and give us some direction on that.
Sure.
And I'm fine adding that motion. I guess from my standpoint, and we've had this discussion before, I would prefer it not even come back to us and that there's a different appeals process that it goes through altogether. I don't think
I like that even better.
This is an appropriate forum, in my view, to address situations such as this.
And I think under the circumstances where they're using a trainer and that, try to train these dogs and be more control of them, I think more reason for us to have some way that we could maybe remove that designation at some point.
I agree.
Five yes.
Right. Take us to item 55, items regarding sidewalk cafe leases. A is the standard at 208 3rd Street, Council Communication number 12-434. One is denying the renewal of the sidewalk cafe lease. Two is redacting the sidewalk area as right-of-way. And three is an alternative resolution approving the renewal of the lease. And I think probably, Mr. Attorney, we should take these one at a time.
That would be my preference, sir.
Yep. Is there anybody here to speak to item 55A?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Rob Iavino, owner of the Standard. I think the last time we met, the police were supposed to go out and verify that all of the other sidewalk cafes were meeting the laws and regulations surrounding having a sidewalk cafe. I don't know if that's been done. I don't know if that's up for discussion still.
We can ask the police to come up and respond to that, but I guess I know the one thing that I was involved in, and we had several others involved in, were the meetings that we had with the Court Avenue Business Group, as well as Downtown Community Alliance, and we did have those meetings, and we came up with a resolution based upon what we had discussed at the last council meeting, but I'll let the police go out and respond to your question.
Okay. Do we find out how those meetings went, or how does that go for us? How do we know what happens?
The recommendation that is coming from the Court Avenue Business Association is that we not approve the sidewalk cafe leases on a pilot basis right now, so that we can do an analysis between you having one and not having one, but that we would evaluate that information so that in the spring we would revisit it and make a final decision at that point. So we would terminate, we would not renew the lease right now. You would not be able to have a sidewalk cafe going forward, but we would revisit it based upon the information that we gather. So I take it you were not at the meeting with the Court Avenue?
The website said the hearing, or the meeting was at 2:30, and we showed up at 2:30, and it was in the middle of the meeting.
What time was the meeting?
False information online. We showed up late, and
It was already done.
Yeah.
Our discussion was done.
Well, they've had the meetings at the same time and at the same place.
This would have been our first meeting.
Yeah.
Pardon?
This would have been our first meeting.
We are new owners down there.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that they always have the meetings at the same time in the same place.
Right. It was
Is
our
what
first
I was
one.
told.
It was
our
the
first
first
one,
one,
and-
so we went online to look at it. It said 2:30 was the time of the meeting. Brew Pub was the place it was at. We went there. Our discussion was already over.
I also tried to contact some people offline, off the website, to find out when exactly it was, and nobody called me back.
Who did you call?
I don't remember the name off the top of my head right now. I could get on the website and show you.
I was at the executive committee meeting, and the notices had been out, and they indicated that they were the same time, same place, so I can't respond to that.
But for a first-timer, the information online was incorrect, so therefore it wasn't fair to us to not be able to be there.
Well, I guess to be personally very blunt about this, if I were dealing with this issue, I would have not depended upon the webpage. I would have been making contact with the individuals, walking next door to the manager of the brew pub, who is actually the chair of the Court Avenue Business District. There were several people that were involved, and I would have gone out of my way to make sure I had contact with them and not just depend on the meeting.
Understood. Understood. So I assume that this is going to go unfavorably for us at this point, but what do we need to do between now and the spring to bring ourselves to a more favorable situation if we're going to reapply for this again?
Well, I would, the police department, they will continue to have discussions and look at it and do an analysis. And I would think that you would want to make contact with the police department just to make sure that you understand, what their concerns are and if those could be addressed in any way. The one concern that did come out as a result of the discussions was the fact that it's clearly it's where people go to smoke. And we did have discussions. I've not seen Sue Ann, I don't think. Or is Sue Ann here now? Sue Ann, you are here. I know one of the discussions we had was, would it be possible to allow smoking in the alleys to move some of the congestion away from the front of the building? Because clearly the cafe, the sidewalk, is really being used more as a smoking area. It doesn't mean that they can't smoke when they go outside the building and on the sidewalk now, but they cannot take their alcohol out there with them.
Correct. I'm not really sure that the alley is really the most appropriate place for them to go.
I mean, the whole problem here is that it's forcing people into traffic, and now we want to put them in an alley where there's cars coming in and out.
Well, I know staff was going to look at that. We thought it was city-owned, a city-owned alley, and so there was going to be some exploration as to whether or not that would be an alternative.
Right, it's actually where all the dumpsters are housed as well for all the neighbors around that area. Mickey's, Komodo, Brew Pub, they all have their dumpsters out there, not just our dumpster, but there's like 4 or 5 dumpsters out there.
So that was the only other item that came up as a result of the discussions.
I think that Ms. Hensley, rather than carrying on a conversation about this some more, we ought to have Sue Ann probably go over the details. We also have another speaker, I believe, that was up who may have something to add to the discussion. And but if you gentlemen will wait, let's see how it comes out, number one. But also certainly the details of the meeting and any things that they could do, as you suggested, that would get you into a standing that would be acceptable to reconsider, I think is a reasonable request. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Glenn Lyons. I'm the CEO of the Downtown Community Alliance, and I live at 3316 Southern Hills Drive in Des Moines. We've been involved in what I call nightlife management activities in the court district since I arrived in 2010 to take up the job. We do crime prevention audits. We just completed one about 3 weeks ago. And the Downtown Community Alliance hires off-duty police Friday and Saturday nights in the summer. We're running 6 on Saturday nights now and a walking beat patrol and 4 on Friday nights. Court District is a great district. We're really glad to have it. But Friday and Saturday nights in the summer, there are thousands of young people down there. And between midnight and 2 in the morning when the bars close, the number of people on the sidewalk it's a very high density. It's very hard to walk past some of the establishments where the entrances are. And this block has 8-foot sidewalks at best. And those sidewalks are broken up by light poles and parking meters and A-board signs. I think there's a couple of trees there as well. And so it's hard to move on the street between 12 and 2 at that time of the morning, and taking 4 feet, 3 feet, whatever the number is, for a cafe here makes it more problematic. There are people waiting to go into the bars. There are people coming out or stopping to talk to their peers, people smoking. It's quite a crowd, and I think you've seen tapes of that. And I think that really needs to be taken into consideration as we try to work to some resolution of this issue. And I think there's another one coming as well. There's only so much space, and we need space for pedestrians first.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
All right, we need to, unless there's anybody else in the audience who wants to speak to this particular issue, we need to have a motion. Again, the recommendation appears to be denying the renewal of the Sidewalk Cafe license. 2 is rededicating the sidewalk area as a right-of-way. Or 3, the alternative resolution approving the renewal of the lease.
I will move item 55A1 with the stipulation, though, that this is on a pilot basis to do the analysis between not having the sidewalk cafe and having a sidewalk cafe, so that they'll have we can make a final determination then before the spring season starts, when they really want to have the sidewalk cafe in 2013. So it would be to not renew the lease at this time, basically denying it, but being on a pilot basis so that we can revisit it in the spring once we've had a chance to do the analysis between having it and not having it. Mr. Lester, is that appropriate? I'm gathering you have some concerns.
No, the mayor had a question about the rededication of right-of-way. If you rededicate it as right-of-way, that makes things treated differently than if they're leased as for sidewalk purposes. So if the temporary, if the result at the end of the temporary period is that there's going to be sidewalks there, then at that point in time, council can make a determination on vacating and then proceeding with the lease. So I think the rededication is probably still appropriate.
Okay. That's my motion.
So should you move 2?
Can I?
2 as well.
Can I move 2 as well? Yes, please. I'll add that.
Thank you.
Can I make a couple comments before we vote? And I have a question. When does their current lease expire? And what is that? Let me ask that first.
I don't have the lease in front of me. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Sue Ann's got that.
Mayor, council, the lease has expired. They have the application pending. It was waiting for approval from council. So we would refund the payment that they've given us if we're going to go this direction, and let them reapply then after this pilot has been.
And so then the question I would, just as a follow-up, would be that action taken tonight, assuming that it goes forward and we do not renew the sidewalk lease, it would be taken down immediately.
It would need to come down.
Yeah, okay.
So what is the penalty if they don't get it down tonight, tomorrow?
Well,
is it?
The penalty would be for encroachment on the right-of-way, but certainly we would work with them to get it done timely.
And what would you say that is?
I'd be happy to talk with staff, but I would think within just a couple of days, so that they should be able to have everything out of there.
Okay. If this is a test period, and I know some people have voted, but I had some questions. If this is a test period, are we confident that we have? So we want to compare the situation when the fence was up or the railing or whatever you call it, to what it is without it. Do we have the baseline data that we're going to use to compare, or what? Can somebody give that to me tonight or tomorrow? I mean, do we know what it is and how we're going to measure it?
Members of the council, Mr. Mayor, Major Steve Waymeyer. We don't have a baseline other than our experiences down there. I have video shot over a 1 weekend period We are talking about summer versus winter, but there are enough events in the fall and winter period that are very crowded downtown. Halloween, there's a couple party nights down there where we would be able to compare like crowds. That answers your question.
And the comparison would be a video comparison as opposed to a head count?
We don't have a head count. We can make a video comparison. I also can have we put, as well as Downtown Community Alliance, paying for off-duty officers, we put supervisors down there. I have a lieutenant in charge of nightlife activities down there on Friday and Saturday night. He can give a first-hand testament, but I don't have a head count. We have video from the weekend that we showed here last time.
And don't get me wrong, I think the video is pretty compelling, but I also think, as I said last time, I want to make sure that we're doing this in a way where, you know, we're being really objective about what, you know, I mean, I'd be able to, like, if I vote for this tonight, I'd like to be able to look them in the eyes in 6 months and say, we were right to do that because it's gotten better or it's gotten worse based on these kind of criteria. And I think it would be helpful as we enter this period that we define that a little bit.
As far as it getting better, the removal of the cafes is just a part of it. We still need officers there and staff from the bars to keep people moving in front. I mean, it's most of the people there are there because of the particular businesses that were here tonight. Their staff, in my mind, is responsible for keeping people moving. And if we can keep the sidewalks clear, that will help us go a long way in determining whether or not this is effective.
Bob?
Hey, just a question. I think we removed the parking from the west side of 3rd Street, haven't we?
Yes, we did.
So there's no parking there. Is anybody consider the possibility of closing part of that street to expand the sidewalks on the weekends or anything of that nature so we could accommodate these people? Would that even be a part of a consideration?
One of the things to consider is we already close one lane on the east side of the street on Friday and Saturday nights for cab parking. We're closing that lane would mean we have 2 lanes headed south on 3rd Street. We have considered that. It's a very large area. I don't know how far up you'd take it, but then you have traffic coming down and then being forced into the middle lanes, unless you take it all the way back up to Walnut, and then you have the exit of the condominiums right there as well.
I have no idea what the auto traffic is down there in that time of evening.
It's pretty, well, I guess the other issue, and I discussed this, it came up with staff, was the Cubs Club, or the ballpark, Principal Ballpark. And, you know, that's the main avenue that goes to the Principal Ballpark, and you couldn't just close it for certain times without it being problematic.
It's 3rd Street is one of the busiest north-south streets. It's a way to get from downtown to the south side. There are only about 3 streets that are open or clear, and it's a very, very busy from the freeway all the way south.
I just wondered if that had been considered because, you know, if we can help them in any way, I'd be all for that.
Mayor?
Yep.
I have a question.
Please.
So if I understand this correctly, the cab stand is across the street from these 2 nightclubs?
Yes, it's in the east lane of 3rd.
So the patrons, the people that are there for nightlife are having to get across the street to the cabs?
They are.
Have we considered moving the cab stands to the west side of the street where it'd be safer and more convenient?
Councilman, I have not considered that. I don't know the thinking that went into putting it where it's at, and I haven't put any thought into moving it across. We would run into some of the same problems as we had when cars were parked there. If we now put a cab stand line in front of those establishments, that cab stand line by the end of the night is several hundred people deep. I don't know how that would clear up the problem. I think it would create more.
Okay, just a question. Thanks.
Anything else? Anybody? All right, we've got a motion and some voting has been taken.
If I could add in something, that the lane used for the parking isn't used for traffic after 6 anyway. So, I mean, he made the point that the taxi line is already cutting down on traffic but the lane outside of our business isn't used for traffic either, so it wouldn't really have any effect if we were to put a alternate fence around that.
Temporary barricade.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'd also like to restate that the busy hours are only about 6 hours of our work week, and maybe we could resolve this issue by taking down the patio on the weekends. Typically on the weekdays it's not an issue at all, and we do rely on our patio to you know, we do rely on our patio with all the other businesses around that have patios.
I think that's an option that as we look forward, depending on how this motion goes, that we look at that as an alternative as well. So I appreciate your bringing that up.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Six yes, one no.
All right. Item B is the Komodo Club at 214 3rd Street, Council Communication number 12-436. 1 is denying the vacation and lease of the public sidewalk. 2 is an alternative resolutions approving the vacation and lease in the first consideration of the ordinance above. And B is the final consideration of the ordinance above. The waivers requested by the applicant requires 6 votes. All right, is there anyone here? The Komodo Club. Komodo Club person here?
I'll make a motion on item B to deny the vacation and lease of the public sidewalk. And I'd also like to make a comment to correct the record as to what occurred, what was discussed at the last council meeting. Mr. Smithson indicated that he had been a member of the Court Avenue Business Association. He has not been a member for the last ever, from what they were able to tell us. He also indicated that they routinely changed the meeting times and places, therefore he was not able to get to those meetings. He's never attended the meetings with the exception of the one last week where he was discussing this item, and one other item where he was requesting their support in the last 5 years. So I just want to make sure that that's accurate information on the record.
All right, so the motion is?
To deny.
1, denying the vacation lease.
Yes.
Seven yes.
All right, takes us to item 56, in the conveyance of a vacated dead-end segment of Merced Drive and vacated dead-end segment of 30th Street adjoining 2996 Merced Drive to Michael R. and Marlene L. Emery for $200. Council Communication number 12-423. Anyone here to speak on that item? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
I'll move. Seven yes.
Item 57, on the conveyance of an underground electrical easement on city-owned property at the Blank Park Zoo to Mid-American Energy Company for $1. Anyone here to speak on this?
Move 57.
All right, said has been moved.
Seven yes.
Item 58, assessment of a $500 penalty to the following liquor license holders for violation of the Iowa alcoholic beverage laws, sale to underage persons. A is the Lovely Food Mart at 4600 Fluor Drive. B is the Come and Go, number 208 at 3200 Southeast 14th Street. C is the High Life at 200 Southwest 2nd Avenue. D is the Liars Club at 216 Court Avenue. 1 is a consideration of Class C liquor license. E is a Get and Go number 31 at 2601 Southwest 9th Street. F is Sam Betty's at 1430 2nd Avenue. G is Michelle's at 3925 East 14th. and H is Natural Food Mart at 1443 2nd Avenue. Anyone here to speak on any of these? I would like to, Mr. Attorney, have you reviewed this? Item D, Flyers Club at 216 Court Avenue. We are also considering Class C liquor license as we're assessing a $500 penalty.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, but as I understand it, the Liars Club license was on the agenda last council meeting, was pulled because of this, and was placed here so that council could act once the penalty was decided.
Okay. Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm the one that asked for the continuation on the consideration of Class C liquor license, and we have information tonight that shows they haven't paid their civil violation yet, so I would prefer to continue D1 until they have paid that violation.
Just a question, so is it typical that they have to have it paid at the time we take action, or what's the normal process?
It is.
Doug's.
It's. Yeah, sure.
Mayor, members of council, Doug Phillip, Legal Department. The normal process is just assessment of the penalty, and they have a certain period to pay it. They would have the right to appeal your decision here within 30 days. As far as the consideration of Class C license, it's my opinion that the penalty is a separate issue from the issuance of the license, because the penalty takes care of the offense. And it's not the type of offense where you would deny or revoke or suspend the license, because the penalty is set at $500 for this first offense. So I view it as two separate issues. If that helps.
Any thoughts? Thank you.
So I'm sorry, do we have, so the motion is then?
We have a motion, I think, to do A through H, except Councilmember Moore has asked us to consider withholding approval of the Class C liquor license till it's paid. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I don't think it's very prudent to issue a liquor license while they've got a violation out there. And granted, they're two separate issues, but I still think it's not going to interrupt their business. They'll be allowed, I assume, to continue as is. And once they, if it's determined whether they violated the law or not, and then they paid their violation, then at that point we should reconsider their liquor license renewal.
Would you be willing to split that into two separate motions?
Yep.
Yeah, I would like to see it
Yes.
too, as well.
Good.
So A through H.
So D1 is going to be voted on separately then.
Seven yes.
And then
Okay.
I'll move approval of Class C liquor license.
On D1?
D1, yes.
Four yes, three no.
Okay, item 59 on 2012 Park ADA Access Route Improvements Resolution approving the plan specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, receive and file bids, and designating the lowest responsible bidder is Joyner Construction Company, Inc., Jeb Joyner, Vice President, $123,928.60. Council Communication Number 12-429. A, approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. Anybody here to speak on that? ADA route requirements. We have
I'll
motion.
move 59, 59A.
7 yes.
Item 60, on the 2012 Expanded Street Resurfacing Program, Contract 2, resolution approving the plan, specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, receive and file bids, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as OMG Midwest, Inc., doing business as Des Moines Asphalt and Paving. James Gauger, President. $1,568,379.40. Council Communication number 12-430. A is approving the contract and bond and permission to sublet. Anybody here to speak on this item? Seeing none, could we have a motion?
Move.
Item 60. And move.
7 yes.
Item 61, on the 2012 ADA Sidewalk Ramp Program, Contract 1, resolution approving the plan, specifications, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, receive and file bids, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Navarro Enterprise Construction, Inc., John Navarro, President, $442,725. Council Communication number 12-431A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet. Anybody here to speak on this item? We have a motion.
Seven yes.
Item 62 is on the Principal Park locker rooms, a resolution approving the plan, specification, form of contract documents, engineer's estimate, receive and file bids, and designating the lowest responsible bidder as Ball Team LLC. Robert E. Sodders, President, $1,103,000. Council Communication number 12-424. A is approving the contract and the bond and permission to sublet.
I'll
Anybody to
move
speak?
62A.
Item's been moved. See no speakers.
He's in the audience, though.
Mr. Mayor.
He was. Yep.
Maybe, Mayor and Council, after you voted, I'd like to make a comment about future funding options for Principal Park, but you can take that up after you vote.
Which one are we on?
62.
Did you move it? I would like to make just a quick comment, if I could, on 62. There's two long-term things that concern me, and I am supportive of this action and very supportive of the ballpark and the club. I think we just have to find ways to get additional new revenue sources to help with the capital expenses there. And the citizens of Des Moines have created a gem for our community, and we need to continue to invest in it. These little things, while they're sometimes controversial, it's always more controversial in 10 years when you have to go ask this community for tens of millions of dollars because you didn't do the little maintenance things as you go along. So this is smart. But I think over a period of time, we have to find a way to engage the suburban community. This is a ballpark that serves the whole region, and it is something that I think all of us should have a hand in. When it was built a little over 20 years ago, the region approved that bonding, and we used hotel motel taxes from every community to pay for it. Now that those bonds are paid off, the capital improvements are falling back on the city of Des Moines alone, and I think we need to partner with the Iowa Cubs operation and do what we can to reach out to those suburbs to try and bring some of those hotel motel dollars to this facility. I know we have new systems in place like Bravo and other things, but to me, it's one of those long-time existing commitments that we've made as a region, and we shouldn't let this real gem in our community suffer because we haven't done our best job in attracting some of the region's money to it. We're not going to be able to maintain it a five-star, all-American facility if it has to rest on the people alone from Des Moines, and I want it to be all that it can be, and I think we're going to have to look other places. The other thing is I know that there's conversations underway about some money programmed to be there. For instance, some of the consent decree that we have with the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, money is programmed for there. And my hope is that that money might be able to stay at the ballpark if it's not all consumed through trying to make those improvements. And I'd refer kind of that issue maybe to the city manager. Of course, the mayor, I know, is involved more directly in these conversations than I am, but I want to make sure that we have the funds that are there, but I think it's going to take a better effort, and I'd like to challenge the city manager and also the ownership of the club to partner with us in re-energizing those relationships with the other hotel motel recipients.
All right, Mr. Manager, why don't you insert your comments here?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and council members. Mr. Coleman, I think, really touched on the key points here. I want to make 3 of them. The first point is there are 2 ad alternates that are being recommended this evening. I want to give credit to the Cubs, and I see Sam Burnaby out there. The Cubs have stepped forward and said they will pay for alternate number 2, so we very much appreciate. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is, and Mr. Coleman alluded to this, there are funds in this capital budget to do ADA improvements as well as repairs to the building. If our bids come in below budget on that, it seems to me that there is additional work out there that we couldn't contract for in this particular bid or in this particular contract, and it would be my recommendation, council, that you would consider any additional funds that aren't utilized for those ADA improvements to be used for these improvements as well. And the last point I want to make to you is the one that Mr. Coleman referenced, but I think it is extremely important. This is a great facility, but as with any building, its need for repair and improvement accelerates as it gets older. That is certainly the case here, and we simply need to be in a position where we can reach out to others, suburbs, the state of Iowa, private entities, whatever it might be, to make sure that there are sufficient capital funds beyond what this council is able to allocate in future years. It's important that work begins soon, so when there is a need to make those repairs, that there is a funding source beyond what the City Council is able to pledge to it. So I think that's important, and I would hope that part of your motion would include a direction back to me and others to work on that particular subject and bring back some recommendations to you.
We have a speaker.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thanks. Sam Burnaby, President and General Manager of the 30-game under Iowa Cubs and an affiliate 25-game under Chicago Cubs. This building is a little over 20 years old, as Councilman Coleman alluded to, and it doesn't get any easier by any means. And certainly the partnership that we have and we've created with the City of Des Moines is second to none. And I will say that out of 160 minor league teams, and I'm the chairman of the board for minor league baseball, and I am intimately close to all of these teams, I can tell you that there isn't a better relationship, partnership than what we have with the City of Des Moines, and we greatly appreciate that. There are some things that are going to be coming up in the building over the next few years that are going to need some sizable attention. So certainly anything that we can do to help encourage our suburban brothers, if you will, whatever we can do to help that along, we'd be happy to jump in and do all we can to make that work. So thank you for your partnership, and thank you for your support of the building. There isn't anything more gratifying in our business than to have somebody walk up to me that's never been to the stadium and ask me if the stadium is 4 or 5 years old, because I think we're doing a great job of keeping it up. So thank you.
Sam, one suggestion I would have, and we did discuss it at a council meeting, I think, previously when we were going out for bids for the contractor on this. We've got a great template that's used at the Civic Center where they actually assess a facility charge, a capital campaign charge on each ticket. And I think it's $2.50 per ticket. It's a great way to spread the cost among those individuals that use it. So if you've got more people using it in the suburbs than actually within the city of Des Moines, they're actually contributing to that. And I would love to see us consider something like that or as a starting point anyway, and look at other funding resources as well.
We'd sure be happy to talk with you about that. That's no problem.
Very good. I did move the item. Thank you very much.
Okay.
7 yes.
That concludes the hearings at 6:08. Let's now go back to item 47, which is a ordinance second consideration for amending Chapter 114 of the Municipal Code regarding the citywide snow removal and establishing odd-even side snow parking zones. Is there anyone in the audience to speak to this? Sure.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for letting me come. I want to thank Chris Hensley.
Could you give us your name and address?
Betty Grunberg. The address where I live is 224 Foster Drive.
Thank you, Betty.
I would like to thank Chris Hensley, who immediately responded to my letter, an urgent response, and I appreciate that. I would like to also thank Sarah Thies and Patrick Kozetsky, who came out to try to help seek a solution to our problem. For 35 years, I've been involved in housing, renovating, and restoring it in the city of Des Moines. Not in the suburbs and not in the downtown Des Moines, but in the neighborhoods. I was really shocked to find out that we might be losing what I would consider a third or more of our parking at some of our buildings. With the alternating on 7th Street and with the understanding that our building on 3616 University is in the Drake neighborhood, we no longer will have as much of an issue. But we have 5 major complexes where we need additional parking. The one that is most dear to us is a property at 4024 Grand Avenue. We bought it 12 years ago. We have invested $1 million in it, and I said earlier today $500,000, but I went back and checked, and I was shocked at how much we had invested in it over the 12 years. And it's invested in restoration. The building was built in the 1920s when people either had no cars or 1 car. We have 22 units. We have 20 garages. About 1/3 of the people who live there would need a second place to park a car. There are no places on our property to park the cars. We are in competition not just with our neighborhood, but primarily with the western suburbs who have more parking, the downtown buildings that have tax abatement, low-income tax credits, preservation tax credits, and/or TIF districts. We have used none of those in our renovation of this building, except for a tax abatement for several years because we had to put in a boiler. Not allowing us to park on the street decreases the value of that property. And I appreciate the fact that there's an effort underway to see if there's something else that could be done. Many of the people in our building are elderly, and they need a parking place nearby. I would ask you to not take the parking away from outside our buildings, and particularly the one at 4024 Grand Avenue. The street is very wide. The city asked the neighborhood association before if they would be part of the snow removal plan where you don't park. The neighborhood association said, "We can't do that to Betty." And that was their response, and they said no. We do need that parking, and I do not know what the solution will be, but it's not to tear down a neighboring house and park there. It's not to put parking on our front lawn. And I ask you to reconsider this before you vote on it. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Betty.
I'd ask, is Pat here?
Yeah, he is over here.
Pat, why don't you come up, since you attended this gathering. We've had extended discussions about snow plowing and plowing plans, and certainly she has a specific issue here. Do you have any thoughts around this, or would you want to suggest altering your plan for some reason or another?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Pat Kazitz. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director for the City of Des Moines. And we did have an opportunity to visit with Betty. Very graciously explained what the situation is there. The concern is very, very real. Parking options are very limited there. We went out there to visit with her to understand exactly what the problem was and to begin to explore alternatives. We are continuing to explore those. We've made some preliminary inquiries, one with some of the surrounding churches. We have another church nearby at 39th and Grand that we've used before in scrub sites for north of Grand. People have been very cooperative in trying to accommodate this parking situation. I think Betty's been cut up short on this. I think she did not hear about this till after first reading, and that's tough, and it's tough on her residents. What we did promise is that we'd look for alternatives. We have not identified one that works necessarily for her or for us. And this isn't unique. I think there's going to be other areas where people are going to have difficulty. This is not a convenient thing. It's a necessary thing, but not convenient. We promised to Betty we would continue to explore alternatives, and we will.
Pat, could I ask this? The alternatives, I've seen some of the pictures when you don't have an alternative like this to be able to remove snow. Would some of those elderly customers, quite frankly, get plowed in? How would they get out?
Well, that's, I think, a problem for Ms. Grunberg when they're doing their initial plowing, and certainly a problem for us when they're parked on the street. When we do plow, I'm quite convinced we're plowing them in now pretty heavily. And so they would have trouble digging out from that. And then once they move, then we'd have those mounds of snow to work around. That's what we're trying to eliminate. We do think that'll be a safer, better quality, more efficient way to plow snow.
In her case, and Betty, you correct me if you're wrong, on that, you're talking about Tonawanda there?
That's correct.
Okay, so there isn't a parking there, is there? Isn't it the sidewalk just goes straight to the street?
The sidewalk is right at the street, and there's parking all along there.
So,
They're up to, generally, they're up to 11 to 12 cars on the west side part, and on the east side, and on the west side, there may be 8 to 7 cars on.
And the apartment buildings on the west side, we think, are going to have sufficient off-street parking. Mm-hmm. That's not a situation that Ms. Grunberg has.
yeah, I guess it's just another question, and I'm not sure how you handle it, Betty, but when the snowplow comes down with the cars removed off of there, the snow's going to go on the sidewalk.
We would plow right up onto the curb and onto that sidewalk, yes.
Right, and so now the question is, how does she get that off? Because, I mean, all of a sudden a 4-inch snow becomes a 18-inch, 2-foot snow, and it's ice usually after a while, and she's got to clean her sidewalk as well. So, interesting conundrum we're in here.
Pat, have we made contact with Plymouth? They have the covered parking there. That, to me, would be just a natural. It's just directly across the street. There's a sidewalk right there.
And we have talked with St. Augustine. We plan to talk with Plymouth.
Plymouth having the covered parking, I mean, with the churches, I would think that there would be a lot of opportunity there because they only need it on Sunday mornings.
And their concerns are, of course, that when they have services, that they have sufficient parking. Secondly, liability, I think, is a concern to them if someone should fall on their parking lot while using it. So we're wrestling with those issues, and we have made contact again with St. Augustine, and we'll be talking with Plymouth.
Okay.
Thank you, Pat. All right, anybody have any other questions?
Well, I don't have any other questions, but I'll go ahead and move the second reading for this item with the understanding that we've got one more reading, Betty. We'll continue the dialogue and try to get resolution to this. I guess I think that the churches are really going to be important to us as we try to resolve these issues. And if there's some way that we can work with them to address the liability issues, I know our hands are tied to a certain extent on that. But so we have one more reading before it's final, but we'll continue the discussion and make sure we have resolution to it before we take that final reading then.
All right, we have a motion.
Seven yes.
Item 48 from Councilmember Brian Meyer to speak regarding maintenance of foreclosed properties. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Mayor. This arose at a neighborhood association meeting that I was at, actually the Coalition of Southside Neighborhood Associations. I think there are some concerns over, and I'd be willing to bet that most of us have run into neighborhood associations that feel the same way about the maintenance of foreclosed properties and how do neighborhoods know that a property is foreclosed? How do the banks maintain those properties while they're in possession of them? And just generally speaking, what to do, sort of they're looking for a way to know what to do when a home is foreclosed and what their responsibilities are. So, banks, that is.
If I could just,
I know you had something
yeah, if I could add to that, this item is coming up on a more regular basis, foreclosed properties, and I know Holly, head of neighborhood finance, is here. I asked her to be here just so she could respond. But it is coming up more frequently, and it is a problem within neighborhoods, and it's not just in certain neighborhoods, it's throughout the city. And I believe it also became an issue as a result of the housing summit that was conducted with our staff back the middle of July. And to be perfectly honest, I think there was some concern about the responses to the information that was provided. And now this is just a continuation because people are paying more attention and they're really feeling frustrated. There's nowhere to go. They're feeling like nobody's able to give them the information or the answers that they need, and it's become quite a blight on neighborhoods. So I did ask in my role on the board with Neighborhood Finance Corporation if they could look at this to figure out, do they have some recommendations or thoughts as to how they might play a role in helping the city work with this.
Yep. Everybody, Holly Olson, Neighborhood Finance, 1912 6th Avenue. I could talk for quite a while about foreclosures. I wear a variety of hats. One with going out to neighborhood associations and talking with neighbors and seeing the problems firsthand there. Also, being a not-for-profit mortgage bank, we have our own foreclosures to deal with, and we do the best that we can, but I can tell you that there are no easy answers. There are definitely, there are foreclosures in every neighborhood. There's one up around the corner from me. It's been vacant for several years. There are a lot of issues, but I think really what it comes down to, the central issue on the whole thing is holding property owners accountable for the property condition and what are the consequences that they face when the property is not in acceptable condition. Because before the bank gets back the property, technically the property is in the name of the borrower. Foreclosures, there's a certain point where things become public notice. Until that actually happens, then it's actually a matter of the loan being delinquent, and that's not something that, because of customer confidentiality, that a lender can go out to a neighborhood, even if the lender were local, and to say, oh yeah, these people are falling behind on their house payment. Sometimes they move out, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they move out and a renter moves in. So there are a lot of issues. I think what I would recommend is that, and there's a lot of education that goes along with this, because there's, the local borrower who was living there and what they're held responsible for. Certainly then, there are the banks. If there is a local organization that is going to hire people to go onto these properties that are not owned by that local organization, then somehow people will need to be paid to do the mowing and the upkeep unless you have volunteers. I know there's some neighborhood folks here tonight. They quite possibly would be going out and mowing lawns of vacant neighborhood properties. Indirectly, they are volunteering their time. And I can certainly understand that. That happens in many neighborhoods. The downside of that is that masks the problem for the ultimate property owner. Because if their servicer is sending an inspector out there once a month and the lawn is being mowed, then the inspector's like, well, lawn's mowed. So they don't see that it is a problem. I think that what would be a good idea in the interest of time would be to form a committee to really get, not just, I mean, certainly there should be neighborhood residents. I think city staff should be involved as well, whether it's community development staff or, public works staff in light of property maintenance. I would be happy to be on that committee myself. But I think there is a lot of education here. There's a lot of issues to talk about and how you figure out what can be done during the various stages of property ownership and property responsibility. It's not something you can hammer out tonight. I'll be happy to take any questions on any issues, but that would be my recommendation, to form something with the ultimate goal of educating the public in terms of when is a property responsible, what can individuals do. And it is difficult. You have an out-of-state lender, they have an asset manager that is probably out of state too, they contract with somebody locally here, they go by the property intermittently. They may or may not be a stakeholder that drives by the property every day or every week.
Well, and the other thing that we have to be sensitive to is many of these loans are sold to entities out on the east or west coast, and they have absolutely no local contact. And,
correct.
And those are probably some of the bigger issues that we're dealing with here. I like the idea of putting together a committee that could come up with a recommendation or could work with the city to do that. I think that you could also work with Iowa Bankers Association, because they're looking at this as a significant issue from a PR perspective. I mean, they're getting a black eye when they're not necessarily the ones that should be getting the black eye. It should be some other of the financial institutions that are not living up to their responsibilities. So,
Go ahead. I like that idea too. I like the idea of forming a committee. Here's my suggestion on a motion. I know you're going to speak, but my suggestion on a motion is to refer back to the city manager or city attorney to work with NFC and other principals that would like to be involved, Bankers Association, to maybe give us back as a council, and so I can give to my neighborhoods where we stand and where we should go from here as far as a solution to some of the problems with maintenance. So does that make sense, Holly? To do something like that. So that'll be the motion. I was just going to make that.
I'm 100% supportive. Before Jeff Lester got here, a group of neighborhood people and I met over a period of time. Ben Bishop wrote a proposal, and without putting words in anybody's mouth, I think it made the city manager and the city attorney, who at the time was a different city attorney, happens to be the same city manager, a little uncomfortable about how to go about doing this. But Ben and Sue and Larry Holtz and Roger Brown wrote a 2 or 3 page policy at that time. It was really driven by a couple of people in the Beaverdale Neighborhood Association, but we reached out and invited people from other neighborhood associations. And I think there's a great starting point there that, like a lot of things, ended up dying. Bruce left, and it just hasn't gotten picked up. But I think there were some fundamental issues that they saw in the way that it was going to be enforced, and fairness, and the capacity of, I think one of the things I learned when we were going through this is, it's going to be hard to write something about foreclosed properties. You probably have to write about it for all properties. And we could thrust a whole lot of cost on some very low-income people in our community, and that has to be addressed. And I know that was the manager's concern, or one of them at least. But I think it's absolutely necessary. And as Holly points out, you can drive up and down almost any neighborhood here and see a foreclosed house that has been seriously deteriorated. There's dozens of houses in every neighborhood that has parts of a roof covered with a $4 tarp from Menards, and problems like that, and we just shouldn't allow that to happen.
Mr. Manager?
I think that it's a great discussion, and I certainly appreciate Holly coming forward with her ideas on NFC. Here's the one thing, and I just want to reinforce the comments that you've already made, and that is that this is an issue for which there's, number one, a lot of national experience. We're not the only city that's experienced a high rate of foreclosures. In fact, our rate's much lower than other cities, so I'm confident that there's some national experience that would be worth tapping into. The second thing is, and you've mentioned it, the lending community certainly has a responsibility here. And as has already been said, I think we really need to reach out to them, not only to be part of the discussion, but also to be part of the solution going forward. So if the council makes the motion as you've indicated, we will work with, of course, with NFC, we'll bring in the lending community, and frankly, anybody else we can think of that has something to offer in terms of a solution here.
And I might just add, from the lending community's perspective, they're extremely concerned that the action that this city, this council takes could be in a manner that they're not comfortable with that's happened in other communities. So I think that they will be eager to work with us and really step up to the plate in a big way.
I mean, it's really a community-wide concern, and where everybody could really be a stakeholder, if not directly but indirectly, because if you want to continue lending in this area, you want the property values to be stable, which means you need to be concerned about what's going on with the 3 foreclosures that are within a quarter-mile radius of the house that you're getting the appraisal on that you're ready to make a loan for.
Hey, Brian, your motion.
Holly, I like your idea of the committee and putting some people together. So Brian, I think, if you had a motion that would include maybe doing that, but I also would suggest that maybe we include maybe a council member just to,
absolutely,
because we've gotten a lot of calls and stuff ourselves, and I think that we'd like to stay on top of it and work with staff to do it. And by the way, I think we've got another committee we talked about neighborhood notification. I think we ought to put a council member or two on that. And I'd certainly volunteer to do that, and if anybody else wants to, I'd suggest that we add that to your deliberations on the other, because I'd like to move both those items forward.
Yeah, I think the motion, that's a good amendment, Mayor. And so the motion will be to form a working group or committee with NFC, the Iowa bankers, any other principals outside of the city, and city staff and a council member. And so I'll refer to the city manager and city attorney to take those steps. That's the motion on 48.
Seven yes. Thank you.
Item 49 from Councilmember Brian Meyer and council members, actually, Brian Meyer and Skip Moore, to discuss erosion and watershed issues on city property north of 1123 Weingartner Road in the Valley High Manor neighborhood. Gentlemen, who would like to start?
I can start and then throw it to Skip. Skip and I went out a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, with Harlan Donaldson, who's here and I believe wants to speak a little bit on it, to see some of the watershed issues at this property in this area. And it's really, I think it's fair to say, and Skip knows more about it than I do, but it's fair to say it's a tricky situation as far as ownership and more of a bureaucratic internal thing with the city as to whose responsibility is it. But Skip, I'll turn it over to you. You know a little bit more than I do.
Thank you, Brian. My history with this goes back to '63 when my family moved in one block from this site. It is owned by Parks and Rec, and for several years after we moved in, it was maintained by Parks and Rec. There was actually the developer of the neighborhood had a small ski jump on this slope, and down below they had 2 or 3 ponds with a warming house that were used for ice skating in the winter. Parks and Rec, rightfully so, determined that the ski jump was unsafe and removed it. And then somebody decided they wanted to burn down the warming house, and at that point it was determined there was no reason to have the ice skating ponds any longer. And this area quickly fell into disrepair. It has been very unsightly for probably 30, 40 years now. And I've got great concerns over it. There's some erosion in there that I believe needs to be corrected, and I think that we could do some selective removal of trees in there and some grading and overseeding and get at least the first 150 feet of it back into a maintenance schedule with the rest of the park that's immediately west across the street from it. Harlan, maybe you want to touch on that a little bit.
Mayor, Council, Harlan Donaldson, 1020, that's our problem house, 4143 Knob Hill with Valley High Manor. The first thing I need to do is correct the address on your request. It's 1022. 1123 is north of the problem. I have pictures of the area, but I think if I just explain to you that if you have a exhaust pipe for a storm sewer that's 4 foot below the sidewalk, that extends 5 foot beyond the sidewalk, and then in that next 150 foot, you have 50, 60 foot of slope. Eventually, you have Grand Canyon that's threatening the neighborhood properties right now. Would anybody like to see pictures?
I think we have a good idea, and 2 council members that have been out to see it. I think what we need to do maybe is have a motion to on how to proceed and refer it to the manager and appropriate city departments to work on and address this.
Bill, did you want to speak briefly on this?
Yes.
The motion will be, if it's okay with everybody, that I refer to the city manager to work with Harlan, revisit this. I know Bill's looked at it, Parks have looked at it, kind of revisit it and come up with an action plan, because it does look pretty distressing out there.
Mayor, County, members of the council, Bill Stowe, Public Works, and Harlan has spoken on several occasions with city staff, including Public Works and Parks folks, and both Mr. Meyer and Mr. Moore have brought this to our attention on several occasions. The only reason that I rise to say something on this is a concern, a safety concern. This is a picture of the area, and I know Harlan's very familiar with this. Temporary fencing is up now. Any solution to this problem, the problem is more complicated than I think it's been described, in the sense that there's a lot of illegal dumping of debris, construction, demolition debris into a ravine that's immediately adjacent to this. It really is the larger cause of erosion, not the street intake outletting to 4 Mile. But be that as it may, close proximity to the sidewalk here, temporary fencing, I would like to certainly bring it to your attention that staff would like to move forward with installation of permanent fencing here, recognizing certainly in Harlan's view that is not an overall solution to the problem, but it will provide greater safety for pedestrians, bicyclists, anyone who's immediately adjacent on the sidewalk you see, which is the white grayish area through the fence. We need to move forward, in my view, with making that more secure. And again, if you will receive, file, and refer back to us, we'll look and work on additional solutions to a portion of the issue here. But the fencing, I believe, is one that we want to move on, certainly before the larger construction options are assessed. And certainly in this construction season, we'll want to have permanent fencing there. Harlan, is that a concern to you? You put permanent fencing there?
My request for temporary was in lieu of permanent, so the base problem would be addressed.
And I appreciate, I don't mean to suggest that this is a permanent solution to your concerns, but I walked along there today on both sides of the fencing, and the fencing is frankly insubstantial to be able to deal with safety issues. I just ask the council's recognition to direct staff to move forward to make the area safe at this point, recognizing it's only a partial solution to the issue.
I think that's fair. I think recognizing that the fence is not a permanent solution to move forward with the fence, but to refer back to city staff to revisit it and see if there's anything we can do. That'll be the motion.
Okay.
Mr. Coleman?
7 yes.
All right, takes us to communications reports. Item 50 is a receipt of the Des Moines Waterworks audit report and management letter for the calendar year ending December 31, 2011. Any comments anybody like to make on that in the audience or council? If there are none, could we have a motion, please?
I'd like to commend them. They said there was no audit adjustments that had to be made, so they have very good accounting. So that is very positive aspect of it.
Seven yes.
Item 51 has been withdrawn. Takes item 52 from Eric Reisenberg of 5432 Harwood Drive to speak regarding declaring certain breeds of dogs as vicious and request for information regarding disposition statistics.
Hi, thank you. I have two comments, one regarding breed-specific legislation, which is where I'll start. I have quite a few notes, so I'm going to speak a little bit quickly. I apologize. Communities across the country are repealing breed-specific legislation in regards to animal control policies. Following are some of the comments from the American Veterinary Medical Association, their Canine Aggression Task Force. Breed-specific legislation. Concerns about dangerous dogs have caused many local governments to consider supplementing existing animal control laws with ordinances directed toward control of specific breeds or types of dogs. Members of the task force believe such ordinances are inappropriate and ineffective. Breed-specific ordinances imply that there is an objective method of determining the breed of a particular dog, when in fact there is not. A dog's tendency to bite depends on at least 5 interacting factors: heredity, early experience, socialization and training, health, and victim behavior. Breed-specific legislation raises 2 constitutional issues. All types of dogs may inflict injury, so addressing only certain breeds is under-inclusive, and these laws violate owners' equal protection rights. And number 2, identification of a dog's breed with certainty is impossible. Thus, such ordinances are unconstitutionally vague and violate due process. The American Bar Association passed a resolution opposing breed-specific laws last week. Quote, resolved that the American Bar Association urges all state, territorial, and local legislative bodies and governmental agencies to adopt comprehensive, breed-neutral, dangerous dog, reckless owner laws. The reasons include subjectivity in identifying the breed of dogs covered allows for, quote, too much discretion, end quote, by officials, violating due process with the danger of, quote, arbitrary and discriminatory application. And number 2, breed legislation is, quote, inefficient, costly, difficult to enforce, subjective, and questionable in results, end quote. Cities and states are repealing breed-specific legislation. Actions so far during 2012 include Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington is repealing breed-specific legislation because no animal control agency is willing to enforce it. The state of Massachusetts. A state law was passed and signed stating that, quote, no city or town shall regulate dogs in a manner that is specific to breed, end quote. Most professional animal organizations oppose breed-specific legislation, including the American Kennel Club, American Veterinary Medical Association, Association of Pet Dog Trainers, Humane Society of the United States, National Animal Control Association, and the Center for Disease Control. The Des Moines Ordinance. How effective is the Des Moines breed-specific legislation? How much does Des Moines spend enforcing the breed-specific legislation? The animal control budget was reduced by several $100,000 this year. And have dog bites been reduced since adding breed-specific legislation? In regards to dangerous animals, well, that's the end of my comments regarding the breed-specific legislation. A closing comment I would make is that focus needs to be on the owners of these pets. There was a case this past summer in which a dog in Urbandale died. A German Shepherd was left in the backyard without water for several days. The dog died, gruesome death, being prosecuted by Polk County, and we expect he's just going to receive a fine. It's cases like that which produce dangerous dogs, which cause human injury, and the dogs are summarily killed while the people, the responsible, are hardly punished. So that's these are my comments on the breed-specific legislation. My other comment regards to the public records for the. I'm sorry.
Do you have a copy of whatever it was that you just filed that is properly annotated that we could maybe receive, file, and refer to legal and the manager's office and animal control to review?
I mean, I
bring
have
back
this
a
one right here.
recommendation.
I can give this to somebody. This is I'm not sure what you mean.
Move to receive file.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. My next comment regards public records for the Des Moines City Pound. In 2011, I contacted each of the largest cities in Iowa for information on the operation of the city pounds. The information requested included intake and disposition. Each city supplied the requested information except Des Moines, which refuses to disclose what happens to stray pets picked up by animal control. Prior to contracting with the Animal Rescue League of Iowa, beginning in July 2005, the city provided intake and disposition information. And I'm not sure, is this the overhead here that? Oh,
Our expert resides over there in the corner, and he'll help you.
This is the final report prior to animal control for the city of Des Moines being turned over to Animal Rescue League of Iowa. As you can see in the middle there, it shows disposition. This is a look at the last report. I'm sorry, is that the bell?
Yeah, that's the bell. How much longer do you think you need?
About 2 minutes.
1.
Okay, that's fine. This is a look at the last report. This report was signed by the current Chief Humane Officer, Scott Rodabaugh. What this report shows, if you look up there, it shows 2% of the animals were sold for scientific research. 27% were lost as miscellaneous. This kind of information is why we need more oversight, or the public deserves to understand what happens to these stray pets. Were the members of the council aware that pets were being sold for research, or that 27% of the pets were lost? Animal control has been $1 million per year line item of the budget, and there should be some sort of performance standard. In a letter dated August 25, 2011, the city acknowledged that disposition information is public, yet it told me it would cost me $112,000 to compile the same information that the city used to provide in that little summary chart right there. Every other community that I contacted in the state provided this information. Des Moines is the only one which has not, and I've sent a series of letters to the city, and there's been no information provided. Thank you.
Question for you. You said that the city indicated, I thought you said $112,000?
The city did, or Animal Rescue League did?
Well, when I asked for the summary information, the response from both the city and Animal Rescue League of Iowa in writing is that, yes, this is public, but no, there's nobody who tracks that information. So what they would have to do is go line by. State law requires an intake and disposition, a sheet for each pet that's taken in, which records the disposition. Their explanation to me was that they would have to go through each single piece of paper and create a new summary information, blacking out certain information, and that it would cost $112,000 to get that information. And every other city in the state, I contacted the 10 largest cities that have an animal control. They all provided it, for $10 for free for, the cost of the paper. And Des Moines is the only one that has refused to provide that information. And I've sent a series of letters to the city and to the Animal Rescue League of Iowa. And they all agree that it is public information. In a news article, the city assistant attorney said it was public, but that it would cost me $112,000 to get the information. And I think this also points to there is no oversight of the pound, because what they're saying is these records simply don't exist, that there is nobody who is tracking what happens to the pets, and that's why they can't provide it to me. Because if it were already a document, they would legally be required to provide it to me under state public records laws. And I think that's a sad commentary on $1 million line item of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to make a motion to receive and file the information and ask that the city manager work with police department, this is under police department, and ARL to look at ways that we can gather some information without the expense. I mean, I would think that there has to be some mechanism to look at that information. I'm not sure what, I don't want to get into the details of the day-to-day operations and things, but I'd just like to look at some options that we would have available.
Mrs. Hindley, council members, this is the first I've heard of the request, and I guess the appropriate thing is for us to take a look at this more carefully and
Correct.
Look at all the ins and outs of it and report back to you. Obviously, a cost of that nature suggests to me that
It's a higher person.
the data takes a considerable amount of time to assemble, and it's not there or not available or whatever it is. So we'll have to research it all, and we'll get back to you.
What would be a reasonable timeline to have them get back? Or-
You know, frankly, I think to give you an initial status report, if we could have 30 days, I think that'd be fine.
Okay. Fine, thank you.
Seven yes.
Item 53 is from Becky Zerfla of 8036 Dima Drive to speak regarding unlicensed vicious animals.
My name is Becky Zerflu, and I live at 8036 Demon Drive,
Where is that?
Greenfield Plaza.
Okay, thank you.
I am not in the city of Des Moines, within the city limits. I have a Des Moines address, but not within the city limits. I had 2 dogs that were considered vicious by breed. They were pit bulls. They got out of my yard twice. I guess I'm here today. You have a law that allows the city to just take the pet away. If the pet is tested and is non-aggressive, if the pet has never had an incident report of hurting another animal, it's never hurt another human, it's never destructed anyone's property, you can just take the pet away. Now, we sat right here tonight earlier and heard the German Shepherd that all these incidents, he was vicious, but you weren't taking his dog away. So for a dog that does not hurt anyone, you're just going to take him away from the owner because he gets out of the yard. And I don't think that is fair. And what I'm asking tonight is that you look at that law and, because it's unfair, change it in some way so that you can't just take a person's animal. What you're doing by taking that animal, 2 years ago you changed the law that if the dog is non-aggressive, you'll adopt him out. So all you're doing is taking him from one neighborhood and putting him in another neighborhood. That's not protecting the community if you think it's a vicious dog.
Becky, can I quickly ask you a couple of questions just for clarification? You live down in Greenfield Plaza, and so the city of Des Moines in Greenfield Plaza probably doesn't have any authority, and I have to look at Sergeant Rodabaugh, so we probably wouldn't be picking dogs up in Greenfield Plaza. So were your dogs in Des Moines?
They crossed over County Line Road. I do not know where in Des Moines they was picked up. I was never told where they was picked up. I was never told that they were picked up. I found them at the city impound.
Were they licensed?
Their license was expired. They were microchipped.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to get the facts straight.
Sure.
So we understand, because usually wandering dogs, licensed, and in this case, apparently expired, unlicensed, licensed with whom?
Dog license with the city of Des Moines.
You have a city of Des Moines dog license?
I was required, the first time my dogs was picked up, I was required to purchase a city of Des Moines dog license in order to get my dogs out of impound.
Okay.
So I did that. Where I live, I am not required to have a city of Des Moines dog license.
Right.
So the second time when they were picked up, it's held against me, well, you don't have a dog license. No, I'm not required to have a dog license. But they took the dog from me because I did not have a current dog license,
Even though you don't live in Des Moines?
even though I don't live in Des Moines.
But the dog may have been running at large and crossed into Des Moines?
Correct.
Okay.
I did not keep my Des Moines license up. Well, what if the dog crosses into Dallas County? Do I need to get a license for every single county to have a current license in case they cross over? The point would be that they wouldn't get out of the yard. I understand that. But I did not keep my Des Moines license up. So when they picked them up the second time, your law allows them to just take the dog away. The dog has never harmed anyone, never had an incident report. The first time that they picked him up, they told me when I got him back, they said they were great dogs. They didn't have any problems with them whatsoever. Second time they pick him up, nope, you can't have them back. That's what the law says.
How many dogs did you have that got picked up?
Two.
Two.
At the same time. They ran together.
Okay.
So by taking the dog from me, one was deemed non-aggressive, and you go adopt him out. So it just places them in another neighborhood. If the dog is vicious, if that's why you're taking him from me, why would you place him in another neighborhood? Well, he's deemed non-aggressive, so that's why you adopt him out. I don't think the law is fair to be able to take the dog simply because it's a pit bull breed. The German Shepherd that got out 4 times, bit a kid, you don't take him. But the dogs that don't harm anyone whatsoever, you picked him up once, no incident report. You picked him up twice, no incident report. Chances are he's not going to harm anyone. So I do not think it's fair that you can just take him away. And I would ask that that part of your breed-specific legislation be changed. At this point in time, one of the dogs, they said, was aggressive. That is not my dog's personality, my dog's demeanor. So I asked if I could witness that behavior. So in my heart, it would make me feel better if I could witness that before they put him down. I was denied seeing this aggressive behavior. So a month after they picked this dog up, who they said was vicious, they still hadn't killed him. So I filed an injunction so that they could not kill him. Got an attorney and filed an injunction they could not kill him. They agreed to work out a deal with me. They would take a video of the dog, send it to, and I got to pick who it sent to. It came back from the behavior specialist. It was not aggressive.
Okay. Let me quickly have our city attorney address a couple of the factual issues as it pertains to Des Moines law, and then I'm not sure what we do, but I would suspect that probably in the end we need to refer it to city legal and animal control again, and the city manager just for review. Obviously you have a circumstance, but we do have specific ordinances on dogs that live here, and unfortunately yours lives someplace else and likes to vacation here. So at any rate, Mr. Attorney, if you would quickly go over the details of it.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city has an ordinance, and notwithstanding the prior speaker's comments, it is breed specific. It is based on the breed, and so in this case you had a situation where a breed specific dog that is per se a vicious dog under city code was twice found at large. Under city code, that makes that dog eligible to be impounded and removed from the owner. The city does not base its regulations on whether or not the dog lives in Des Moines or has a permanent residence in Des Moines. It's based on whether or not the dog is present in Des Moines when it's found. And so in this situation, you would have had a pit bull that had that is per se a vicious dog with a repeat running at large, and so that is why it would have proceeded that way, and that's what the code provides. With respect to the other dog, there was litigation, as I understand it. The litigation concluded with a settlement agreement where her dog was sent away. It was not returned to her, but was sent away, and that's something that she agreed to. And I believe the ARL defended the city in that case per its contract. But that's why that particular result was reached. And so the city really doesn't have any mechanism to be involved in that particular litigation.
Okay. Appreciate your statement. Do we have a motion that somebody would like to make in how we might handle these moving forward? Certainly, are there any regulations down there? Do dogs just run at large in Greenfield Plaza?
No, they don't run at large, but you're not required to have a license to have a pet at your home. You're not required to have a license.
Okay, how about fencing or anything else? Are there any regulations whatsoever regarding dogs down there?
I'm sure that there are. I have a chain link fence that the dogs would get out from under, very, very strong dogs. I now have, in addition to the chain link fence, I have an invisible fence. So with both in place, the dogs have not gotten out once.
Okay.
What I was asking is that if you could relook at this code and change this code. Your law does not prevent me from going and getting another pit bull breed dog.
Right.
Who knows if that dog is going to be aggressive or not? Now, the one that you've taken from me and you've deemed non-aggressive, but I can't have it back. Okay, well, then I'll just go get another one that could be aggressive. If we could look at it, and the ones that's not aggressive, give back to the owner or not take from the owner, it seems fair.
Do we still have that dog? You don't?
It was my understanding I was going to pay for half of the transportation cost to Longmont, Colorado. I have not seen one bill. I have not gotten any confirmation that the dog is anywhere but still sitting down at the impoundment facility 9 months since it was picked up.
9 months?
9 months now.
Okay.
So part of my coming here was and I don't know if this is the place to ask, you've had the dog for 9 months, you haven't done anything with him, he's non-aggressive, can I have the dog back? It's only humane to give the dog back at this point.
Have you had conversation with the pound regarding the status of the dog? I mean, do you know for a fact that the dog is there?
I do not. The last confirmation that I got from them was in April, and he was still there.
But have you followed up with them since then?
I have not.
And why is that?
I think that I expected a bill from them, some confirmation from them that they had sent it. That was, when they sent the dog, I was going to have to pay half of the transportation cost. I was willing to do that in order for them not to kill the dog. And I've got no confirmation from them that the dog has been sent.
Yeah.
I should follow up with them.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's, if we could have a motion to refer this to the manager, and maybe we can sort this out, what the disposition of the dog is, and we'll give us your number.
I'll
we'll
make
get
the
back
motion to refer to the city manager to do some additional to look at this and further make sure we've got all of the information here. But I would also just add to this that, for the council's benefit, that the MAC, the Metro Advisory Council, has had significant discussions on this ordinance to make sure that we're consistent so that we're not moving the problem from one community to another. And I just make sure that we keep that in mind as we're having these discussions. Okay, so that's my motion. And so who will get back with?
I'll make sure that probably Sergeant Radaba, as a matter of fact, will get back to her.
Very good, thank you. Thank you.
Coleman?
7 yes.
Okay, that takes us to item number 63, which is city manager to sign an Iowa Finance Authority Form 5S, local contributing effort for 60 units of family housing for the Anawim Hubble project to be located at 4560 Hubble Avenue. Council communication number 12-437. Mr. Manager, did you want to make a quick comment on this one?
Mr. Mayor, council members, this is a standard procedure in such projects where the city council is asked to affirm the city's commitment on these projects, which in this case includes enterprise zone benefits and tax abatement, if I'm not mistaken. It is a routine action that you're being asked to do here on a project on Hubble Avenue. I should also add, Mr. Mayor, I've talked to Mr. Mahaffey and some of you in terms of process, and he may want to join in with me in making some comments about process going forward on it as well.
Well, I didn't know whether they had speakers or not, but I would, when it comes time, I'd move this with the understanding that Russ Frazier would meet with the neighbors, do a mailing and an advisory so that they could have an opportunity to be apprised of what's going on with the neighbors and the northeast neighbors also. We had kind of a courtesy meeting with the northeast neighbors to fill them in, but I think it'd be best if Russ Frazier would have an opportunity to meet with them also.
Just also, Bob, for the record, this is the same project that we saw in March, I believe,
Right.
the last time. And
PUD in March, yes.
And so this is just accelerating the time frame to get it with some tax credits that you're hopeful to retain or obtain.
Yeah, to get them transferred from one site to another, and this site had been approved, B.J. Baker's property at the 4560. He had 5 buildings on his appeal to the Iowa Finance Authority. They approved 1 and denied the other ones, but this is the, we had already approved the PUD for the buildings and that there, and so this is a opportunity for us to use that Iowa Finance Authority grant and go forward with 2 more of the buildings there on the B.J. Baker property.
Okay. Any comment, Skip, or anybody?
We had a meeting with Northeast neighbors, and from my count, there were 8 or 9 neighborhoods involved, including Sheridan Gardens, which has got a couple properties within the 250 feet boundary. I think there might be a little concern about the other people within 250 feet of this project that weren't aware of that meeting we had, and I think that if Russ could send a letter out to all people about this and informing them, I think that'd help.
Just let them know that they're moving forward and
yes,
under an accelerated plan. Because Russ, you'd originally thought this was a 4 or 5 year deal, and
yes, Russ Frazier, Anawim Housing, 2024 Forest Avenue. This is, as Mr. Mahaffey had described, the PUD was multi-phased, and given the fact that there was expectation this would be drawn out over a period of years, but given the collaboration that we've been able to work with Mr. Baker on the site, we're able to bring in 2 additional buildings of the original plan. The density is a little bit lower than what was the original plan, so there's actually some fewer units, but still consistent with the original PUD from March.
all right, thank you. All right, is there anyone else to speak? Thanks, Russ, for stepping forward. All right. Seeing none at the moment, Mr. Mahaffey, you had a
I did.
motion?
Yes, I made the motion to approve this with the understanding that Mr. Frazier would meet with the neighbors and would notify the neighbors, meet with them, and also with the northeast neighbors for a full disclosure of what the plans are.
Okay.
7 yes.
Item 64 is a review of the Zoning Board of Adjustment decision on an approved use variance for a 15,960 square foot property in the vicinity of 2001 Clark Street for a general motor repair, vehicle repair shop use. Roll call contains an alternative motions. Council communication number 12-416. Anyone here to speak to that item or issue? Anyone? All right. Could we have a motion? 2001 Clark Street.
I'll move to uphold the zoning board's decision then.
Okay.
I didn't get Hallie's vote.
Kelly.
I'll approve my motion.
7 yes.
Item 65, utilization of a comprehensive public process for reviewing legislation at council workshops. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, council members, as you know, we continue to face legislative sessions which take on issues and proposals that are very important to the city. What's recommended to you this evening is a slight revision in your current process wherein legislative matters would be communicated to the entire council at council workshops. That would be done in lieu of the current process, which utilizes a legislative committee. And in our view, this provides for a more transparent, comprehensive process for the entire council. And we think it would work better than the process we're using today and recommend it to you.
I think it's a great new process. I'll move.
Six yes, one no.
All right, item 66, receive and file communication from the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the Ingersoll and Grand Revitalization Strategy and adopt as a reference in the 2020 Community Character Plan. Anyone to speak to that?
I'll move 66. This has already been approved, and it's coming back after going through P&Z and NRB.
Seven yes.
There were two extra items that were added. In item number 1 is a communication from Council Member Robert Mahaffey regarding a potential traffic signal at Northeast 46th Street and Hubble Avenue. Council Member Mahaffey.
Yes, at East 46th and Grand Avenue, East 46th and Hubble, we've had a number of requests for traffic signal there. Traffic and Transportation has looked at this a couple of times. However, with development going on, Hubble's development going on out there, and with this B.J. Baker property that we're looking at, there's going to be added traffic and that out there, and I just think that we need to consider this again and to make sure that we can make this as safe as possible and put in some signals out there. So I would move that item if.
I agree, Bob.
To refer it, Bob?
Oh, you want me to refer it? Is that what your preference is? Okay. Refer it back to Rick and staff.
Bob.
Seven yes.
Item number 2 is a recommendation from Councilmember Hensley to appoint Jeanette Astor to the Neighborhood Revitalization Board, seat number 4, for a 3-year term commencing June 30th, 2012 to expire June 30, 2015.
I'll move extra item 2.
And moved. Anyone here to comment?
Seven yes.
I want to thank everybody for attending. Could we have a motion to adjourn, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We sit adjourned. Thank you.